It's the Canon EOS 5D Mark III review. Alrighty then, here at first base we're going to talk about the Mark III's design. Now the most exciting thing on the Mark III is its new dual card slots. Here we can house an SD and CF card, just like the Nikon D800. Now you notice an all-purpose lock where the live view switch used to be. There's a new live view switch at the top next to the viewfinder. This is for photo and video recording with the start-stop button embedded in the middle. Another welcome addition to the Mark III is its headphone jack. Now we can actually listen to the audio that I'm monitoring in conjunction with the mic jack, which allows for an external microphone. Now compared to the Mark II and the Nikon D800, which have 920 displays, the Mark III has a nice 3.2-inch 1,030,000 display. We have a nice 100% coverage off of the viewfinder, and it's an intelligent viewfinder recording Canon. We can now see grid lines and AF points on the viewfinder. However, I noticed one thing. The vertical horizontal meter that can be viewed on the LCD screen cannot be viewed on the viewfinder, and you can actually do that on the Nikon D800. Canon EOS 5D Mark III also lacks a pop-up flash, which is something offered by the D800. Another new addition right next to the shutter button is a function button. This actually dictates the focus area selection points, but it can be customized to other things as well. Now you notice that Canon got rid of the creative auto mode, which is fine because you don't even really have to use that. And for navigation, we have the same quick control dial, main dial, and 8-way multi-controller. Now I love the dials on the Mark III just like I did on the Mark II. However, I really would have taken the Nikon's 8-way directional pad found on the D700 and D800 over Canon's multi-controller any day. Now back to terminals, we have your typical flash sync, we have your remote, we've got USB. However, we have HDMI out. This HDMI out is not clean like the D800, so that's a big factor if you're a video guy. The Mark III really hasn't put much weight on. It's about the same weight as the Mark II. It's just a few ounces lighter than the D800. However, it's still a cinder plug with a giant battery. And there's one last thing to talk about, and that's the Mark III's battery. This uses the same battery as the Mark II, and that's huge because the Nikon D800 uses a brand new pattern with the D700. That means you can take old Mark II batteries and throw them in the Mark III. So overall, the EOS 5D Mark III has an improved design. Here we are at second base talking about the Canon EOS 5D Mark III's features, and we're going to start with focus. Usually with new models, camera makers tack a few extra focus features to the tool belt. But not Canon. They went gangbusters on the Mark III's AF options. In fact, the autofocus features are so extensive on the Mark III, I could do an entirely separate review on just that alone, so I'm going to be really brief in this review. Go to the full review on technobuffalo.com for all of my AF findings. As you can see, AF has its own dedicated tab in the Mark III menu, and it's 5 pages long. We'll start with the Mark III's cases, or presets. These are for things like subjects entering the frame or erratically moving subjects. They can all be fine-tuned by different levels of tracking sensitivity, accelerating, decelerating sensitivity, and AF point auto switch. I used the versatile multi-purpose for most scenarios, and that really did the trick. However, we did do a go-karting shoot, and I used the subjects entering preset. That worked pretty well. But that's not all. You could also adjust the release versus shutter priority, which is basically speed versus accuracy. The camera will not take a picture unless it's focused when you have focus priority, and it will just snap away if it's in release priority just to get the shot off. Now the Mark III has 61 AF points compared to the D800's 51 points. There are up to 41 cross-type sensors depending on which aperture you're in, and for the most part this camera did an amazing job autofocusing. Now video mode is a different story on the 5D Mark III. Unlike the D800, which has full-time autofocus in video mode, the Mark III doesn't have that. In fact, you can't even refocus by pressing the shutter button halfway while you're recording video. You have to focus first, then record. So for pretty much every focusing application in video mode, stick with manual. Thanks to its new sensor, the 5D Mark III can reach an ISO ceiling of 102,400, which is just astronomically high. This trumps the Nikon D800 and the 5D Mark II, which have 25,600 caps. Like the Mark II, the Mark III has a 30-second to 1/8,000 second shutter speed with a bulb mode. It has a 63-zone metering system system that measures the luminosity around AF points, and I was highly impressed with the results and the exposure I got with shooting in program auto mode. This camera exposes wonderfully. It's not afraid to shoot up the ISO because the sensitivity is so great. Now another cool thing on the Mark III is its HDR mode. Not only could you shoot HDR images with this camera, you can apply artistic filters like bold, vivid, embossed, things like that. And the results are amazing because you're shooting with a full-frame camera and there's really no need to go into Photoshop. The artifacts also translated over to multiple exposures. You can take up to 9 images and blend them together with artistic effects, and we have exposure bracketing up to 7 images at a time. But the Nikon D800 can do 9 images, so that's something to consider. The 5D Mark III is an exceedingly fast camera. This camera can do a 6 frames per second burst rate. That doesn't seem as fast, but when you compare it to the Nikon D800 4 frames per second, it does factor in. The reason for the Mark III speed is its new processing. Not only was I able to rifle through menu options, but I could scroll through pictures like it was a flip book. It was that fast. Also, there was no need to wait for the recording time after I took a long exposure shot. After 30 seconds, the camera immediately displayed the image. In most cases, I have to wait another 30 seconds for the image to store and process. So this camera is so fast. For video mode, our ISO cap was 25,600. Audio level fine-tuning was excellent. I had 64 different points that I could adjust the decibel level to, and I could use time coding. So the Canon EOS 5D Mark III is excellent when it comes to features. Here at Third Base, we're going to talk about the Canon EOS 5D Mark III's image. Canon equipped the Mark III with a new 22.3 megapixel full-frame CMOS sensor with the company's new DIGIC 5 Plus image processing. Now let's consider one thing right now. The D800 has 36 megapixels of full-frame Fury, which means the Mark III only has 2/3 of that resolution. Therefore, if you're considering a medium format camera, the D800 might be a viable alternative. Canon jazzed up the video on the Mark III. This camera now records 1080p 30 and 24 frames per second and 720p 60 to name a few. We can also record now in all-I or IPV compression, similar to pro camcorders. All-I means less compression, bigger file sizes. IPV, smaller file sizes, more compression. Files are recorded as H.264 MPEG-4s in the AVC codec. Now for still image quality. I shot in a myriad of environments including fast action go-karting, late night miniature golfing, and a full wedding. What I found with the 5D Mark III is that it's a magic maker. Its high ISO performance is astounding. I was comfortable at 12,800 and even 25,600 in certain instances. However, I would stay away from 51,200 and 102,400 because those images are pretty noisy. Now when it came to RAW versus JPEG quality, it was the classic tale. The colors and the clarity with the RAW images were much better. When it came down to still image quality, it really was all about brand preference. Canon versus Nikon, you know who you are. Now in video mode, I got the same excellent high ISO performance that I got in still image mode. I preferred the high ISO performance and the low light sensitivity to the Nikon D800s. I was able to eliminate a lot more dark places with this camera in my hand. So in video mode, the Mark III was better than the D800 low light. However, I noticed that Nikon videos have better dynamic range than the Canon did. And one thing that both cameras shared that I'm really not excited about talking about was the gelatinous blob on the go rolling shutter. In terms of the Mark III's audio, it has a built-in stereo microphone. It was okay, so I recommend using something like a Rode stereo video mic via the 3.5mm audio jack. Now when you do that, you'll notice that unfortunately DSLRs hype the blanket noise in the background. The Nikon D800 did the same thing, so there's no real difference. If you're serious about audio with the Mark III, get a Beach Tech XLR grip. But overall video, I would actually give the edge to the Mark III over the D800. Now it's time to slide into home with the Buffalo Call on the Canon EOS 5D Mark III. Undoubtedly, this is one of the best full-frame DSLRs on the market, but the big question comes down to the difference between the D800 and the 5D Mark III. And I think the answer is brand loyalty.